The lights of Istanbul glittered like diamonds that night. Every street near the Bosphorus seemed to hum with one question: is tonight really Demet Özdemir's wedding? The rumors had been swirling for weeks: secret rehearsals, hidden locations, unexpected guest lists, but no one had imagined that the truth would explode in such a spectacular way. It wasn't an ordinary wedding. It was called the Gala of Love. A celebration that combined elegance, mystery, and a touch of scandal. The invitations had been sent to only a few, handwritten, sealed with gold wax, and carrying a strange line at the bottom: what happens under the lights, stays under the lights. Demet, known for her grace and her ever-shining smile, entered the venue like a vision from a dream. Cameras flashed from every corner, yet her expression held something deeper, not just joy, but an almost trembling emotion that no one could quite describe. Those close to her whispered that she had been nervous all day, pacing back and forth in her suite, holding a small silver locket in her hand. Inside, they said, was a picture that didn't belong to her groom. The night was planned to perfection. Every flower imported, every table designed to reflect Demet's favorite color, white lilies and soft gold. Yet, behind the beauty, there was an unspoken tension. Guests noticed the way her hands shook slightly when she lifted her bouquet. The orchestra began to play, and as Demet took her first step down the aisle, a few people claimed they saw her whisper something, a name, under her breath, and that name wasn't her husband's. Among the crowd, a familiar face arrived late, wearing a black suit and no smile: Kenyaman. Cameras froze. He wasn't supposed to be there. Not after everything that had happened between them. But the moment he entered, every eye turned. Demet's steps faltered, just for a second, before she continued walking as if nothing had happened. Yet that single glance was enough to change the course of the entire night. Those who were there said the atmosphere shifted instantly. The bride looked radiant, yes, but her eyes told a different story. Something unspoken passed between her and Can, something that would later become the talk of the entire nation. And while the orchestra played and applause filled the room, one thing became clear: this wedding was not just a celebration of love, it was the beginning of a revelation, because behind every perfect smile, there's a secret waiting to be unveiled. As the orchestra swelled with music and cameras continued flashing, no one could ignore the sudden tension in the air. The arrival of Kenyaman, the man the media once called Demet's eternal flame, was the kind of twist that could turn a fairy tale into a storm. He wasn't on the guest list. He hadn't been seen anywhere near the preparations. And yet, there he was, walking through the doors of the Gala of Love, his gaze fixed only on her. Demet froze for a heartbeat. The audience didn't notice, but those who knew her well, her stylist, her makeup artist, her closest friends, saw it clearly. A small tremor passed through her hands, and she blinked rapidly, as if trying to steady herself. For a moment, it felt like time stopped between them. No words were exchanged. No greetings, no smiles. Just a glance, one that carried years of unspoken history. People whispered. Some said he had come to give his blessing. Others swore they saw him holding something small in his hand, a folded letter, maybe a note meant for Demet. No one knew. But one thing was certain: his presence wasn't accidental. It was personal. Behind the scenes, chaos quietly brewed. Demet's team tried to control the situation, whispering to security not to cause a scene. "He's a guest," someone said nervously, "let him stay." But inside, Demet was anything but calm. Those close enough to her dressing room later recalled that she had sat down in silence after spotting him, her bouquet trembling in her lap. "Why did he come?" she whispered to her maid of honor. "He promised he wouldn't." In that moment, every emotion she had buried, the pain, the longing, the confusion, resurfaced like waves crashing after a long calm. She was supposed to be happy, to start a new chapter. But seeing him there felt like the past had walked right back into the room, refusing to let her go. When the ceremony began, she smiled through every photo, every vow, every cheer. But her eyes betrayed her. Ken watched silently from the back, never moving, never looking away. At one point, their eyes met again as she said yes, and it was as if the entire room faded, leaving only the two of them suspended between what once was and what could have been. After the vows, as guests mingled over champagne and laughter filled the air, Demet slipped away to a quieter corner of the garden. The fairy lights reflected softly on her dress, and the breeze carried the faint sound of the orchestra. Then, a shadow approached. "It was him. Congratulations," Ken said softly, his voice low, almost hesitant. She turned, surprised, but before she could speak, he handed her something, a small envelope. "You don't have to read it now," he added, "but one day you'll want to know what I never said." And with that, he left. No goodbye. No glance back. Just a quiet exit that felt louder than any applause that night. Demet stood still for a long time, the letter heavy in her hand. She didn't open it. Not yet. But she knew, whatever was inside would change how she remembered this night forever. The next morning, Istanbul woke up to a storm. Social media was on fire. Headlines screamed in bold, "Kenyaman appears at Demet Özdemir's wedding," the moment that stunned everyone. Clips, blurry photos, and whispers flooded every platform. Some said Demet had tears in her eyes during the vows. Others claimed she disappeared from the reception for nearly 15 minutes. And though no one could confirm the details, one thing was certain: something emotional had happened between them that night. But while the world speculated, Demet was locked inside her hotel suite, sitting by the window, still wearing her wedding ring, and holding the envelope Ken had given her. It was small, white, and unmarked. No name, no seal. She had promised herself she wouldn't open it, at least not on her wedding night. But curiosity, mixed with something deeper, nostalgia, pain, or maybe unfinished love, was consuming her. She hesitated, running her fingers along the edge. Then finally, she tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in black ink. The words were short, but each one felt like a wound reopening. "I didn't come to stop you. I came to let you know I never stopped loving you. I hope he looks at you the way I still do. See." Demet dropped the letter on her lap. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The weight of what she had just read hit her harder than she expected. Her eyes filled with tears, not of regret, not exactly of sorrow, but something more complicated, something that couldn't be defined. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Demet, are you okay?" "I'm fine," she whispered, quickly hiding the letter in her purse. But her trembling voice betrayed her. Later that afternoon, when she stepped outside for the press photos, her smile was perfect, but her gaze was distant. The tabloids captured it immediately. "She looks heartbroken," one headline read. "Her smile doesn't reach her eyes," said another. Back at the venue, a member of the staff revealed something that no one had noticed the night before. A security camera near the back garden had accidentally recorded the brief encounter between Demet and Ken. The footage wasn't supposed to exist. But somehow, a few seconds leaked online. Demet standing under the fairy lights, holding the envelope, while Ken looked at her for the last time. No words could be heard, but the emotion in that silent exchange was unmistakable. That clip went viral within hours. Millions of views, endless theories, and countless fans dissecting every frame. "Look at her face, she's not over him. He came to say goodbye. She's crying because she still loves him." Demet didn't respond. She didn't post. She didn't explain. But those who knew her said she didn't have to. Her eyes had already told the truth. The gala of love had turned into the night of secrets. And that single piece of paper, that short letter signed C, had changed everything she thought she had buried. In the days that followed, Istanbul wouldn't stop talking. Every magazine, every TV show, every gossip site had one name on repeat: Demet Özdemir. The glamorous actress who had just lived the most beautiful night of her life, and perhaps the most painful one too. The wedding that was supposed to seal a new beginning had become a storm of speculation. Paparazzi waited outside her home, photographers camped at the studio gates, and reporters shouted questions that pierced like knives. "Did you see Kenyaman that night? Was the letter real? Are you still in love with him?" Demet didn't answer. She walked through the chaos with silence, but her silence spoke louder than any denial could. Behind closed doors, she was a woman divided between two lives, the one she had chosen, and the one she had never really left behind. Every night, she'd return to that envelope hidden deep inside her jewelry box, the same one she had promised herself not to touch again. Yet sometimes, in the stillness of the night, she'd find her eyes wandering to it, remembering his words, his gaze, his quiet presence under the fairy lights. Her friends tried to comfort her. "It's over, Demet," they said gently. "You're married now. Focus on the future." But the truth was, it wasn't over. Some stories don't end with vows or rings. They end when the heart finally stops remembering, and hers hadn't. One evening, a week after the wedding, she escaped the city and drove to the coast. Alone. The sun had just set, and the waves shimmered under the fading light. She sat on the rocks, barefoot, holding that letter one last time. The paper was slightly worn now, the ink beginning to fade. She whispered into the wind, as if speaking to him, "You shouldn't have come that night, but I'm glad you did." Then, she folded the letter carefully and placed it in a small glass bottle. With one last look, she tossed it into the sea. The waves carried it away, disappearing into the horizon, taking with it the memories, the pain, and the love that could never truly die. Demet watched until the bottle vanished, a soft smile on her lips, not of sadness, but of peace. For the first time in years, she let herself breathe without guilt. The next morning, the world saw her again, radiant, composed, unbreakable. She posted a single photo on social media, her standing by the sea, in a white dress, looking at the sunrise. The caption read, "Some stories aren't meant to be rewritten, only remembered." Fans flooded the comments with love, others with questions, but Demet didn't reply. Because deep inside, she knew, some truths are too beautiful, too painful, to ever explain. Months later, the world moved on. New headlines, new shows, new rumors. But for those who remembered, that night remained legendary. The gala of love, the wedding that wasn't just a ceremony, but a confession written in glances, silence, and tears that never reached the ground. As for Kenyaman, he was seen leaving Turkey days after the event. When a journalist asked him about the wedding, he paused for a long time before answering only this: "She looked beautiful. That's all that matters. Nothing more. Nothing less." They never spoke publicly again. But somewhere between the glitter of that night and the quiet of the sea, a truth remained: not everything lost is gone forever. Some loves simply change form. Some promises echo silently across time, and as the lights of the gala faded, so did the illusion that it had been a perfect wedding. Because those who looked closely, those who paid attention to her eyes, already knew, it wasn't just the story of a wedding. It was the story of a love that refused to be forgotten.